Good evening. My name is John Presco. I'm the founder and prophet of the new radio church that belonged, if that's the word, to the late Herbert Armstrong. And his radio church existed about half a mile, 3/4 mile from here on Linda Street. And I tried to save the building it was in, and it was torn down. Had a TV antenna and a big dish, and it was still broadcasting religious shows and messages. People trying to figure this all out. I'm going to announce the official death of the Republican Party today, for the reason that the Republican president of the United States, and the majority of the senators could not reconcile the white nationalism that's finally become apparent with the shootings in El Paso. And the president was there today, but he didn't address this issue. He didn't go out and address the people. He had no prepared speech. The Senate gave him nothing to work with, no encouragement, no message to the people, reassuring people of the United States. And I'll stop rocking back and forth. Get my hands, so I'm not doing this. Didn't reassure the people of the United States, not just the people of El Paso, that the tenets of a democracy and the principles upon which our democracy was founded is still in place. And I'm not going to go into those details. I'll give references to those on my blog when I publish a post that'll be a concordance with this message I'm going to give verbally. I happen to be related to Jessie Benton, the wife of John Fremont, who was a co-founder of the Republican Party and its first presidential candidate. This is very key, because this was an abolitionist party, and it may not have been an ordained party. There wasn't a religious group of people behind it. In fact, these people appear to be Germans, for the most part, and socialists. And they were the radical Republicans, made up of the Turnverein Germans movement, that made a point of in Berlin, at least, of marrying Jews who became a member of the Turnverein. And this was to end built-in prejudice. But then the Zionists attached themselves to the Turnverein, because they were making colonies in Jerusalem and Israel. These are socialists, basically socialist German Jews. And they made up the Republican Party. So you put those two together, and this is the real return to Zion and the true information and message of Jesus that I'll show you does not include Paul, and it does not include the teaching of John Darby, who infiltrated the teaching of the Plymouth Brethren and altered it to create the rapture and the tribulation, which Tim LaHaye picked up in his books, which is now pretty much the religion, if you want to call it that, that the majority of evangelicals are following. And there's nothing that resembles Jesus' teaching in the rapture cult. In fact, Paul told his followers that the laws of Moses do not matter. Forget the Judaizers, that are in conflict with the church in all parts of the diaspora. Paul claims that he's gone out there himself, founding these churches with the permission of Dad Jesus, who appears to him on the road, blinds him, and makes him the head of the church that he persecuted. He was the first mass murderer. He was a shooter. He's exactly what is being exposed today and who's behind the demise of the Republican Party. So this false teaching that Paul created was actually not in competition with Jesus at all. It was invented to counter his mission, which was to restore the Jubilee. That's what it was. That was the core mission. And Paul said, oh, the calendars don't matter. The worships, the Sabbaths, that doesn't matter. Listen, none of it matters. And he makes up this Roman Greek kind of God, Son of God type of person, some kind of deity that's placed way up there in the sky, and and there's no access to him really. The whole Catholic Church was built around Paul, and the votive candles, the trillions of candles, and the pennies in the coffer, all that, all these beautiful cathedrals, not one of them addressed the Jubilee and why Jesus is going around talking about the sabbatical year, why all this, the Jewish calendar, why this is extremely important to his mission. And that was decimated, and what's left of it is extremely intriguing because it points to an historic Jesus, which Paul really didn't care about either, because Jesus did, blind him on the road to Damascus and didn't make him the head of the church. And the key to understanding this is the diaspora. There were about 1 million Jews dispersed in Rome and the Greek nations and other places, Babylon, Iran. This is the dispersion. And those people, if the rule was, the understanding was that every 50 years slaves were set free, indentured slaves were set free. The land was returned to the original owners who turned over a deed because they needed money. So the Jubilee was about freeing people, freeing slaves, returning ancient ancestral lands. Okay. The Greek world, the Roman world, they have nothing like this. They have nothing. The Septuagint, the book of 72, written by 72, came out about 200 BC, and it was written in Greek. It was a translation of the Torah, the Judaic Bible, and most Jews couldn't read Hebrew anymore. They lived in the Roman world, in the Greek world. And mainly they spoke Greek, so they could read the Septuagint. And what happened, what I believe would happen, is that a message got to them because Jews are returning from the Septuagint, traveling to Jerusalem, going to the temple, making sacrifices, which were required for every Jew to make. And on the Jubilee, that was, that was the big one. That was the big time to go to Jerusalem. That was the time to make the sacrifice, to purchase the animals for the sacrifice, because this is good for you. 1, you're going to be set free. 2, your land's going to be returned to you. And your debts are going to be forgiven. Okay, the Greek democracy, looking at that, you see. Our gods control everybody at the fate of man, and the Roman gods, but they never offer freedom, they never offer land, and they never forgive debts. It's right there. It's right there in the Septuagint. And the known world, the Western world, is becoming aware that there's a way out. There's a way out of debt. There's a way to be set free. Rome's made slaves of most of the known world. Here it is. There's a formula for this. And it has to do with calendars and Jews and Jerusalem and the setting of the days of the sabbaticals and the calendar, so the Jubilee will happen. Greeks are reading this. And they're blown away. No God offers this. There's a whole mathematical equation. There's words, all this complex words. How to be free, how to be out of debt, how to get your land back that was taken from you. No one's offering this but Yahweh. And then they heard that a Messiah could do this. A Jewish Messiah could come, and he could set the Jubilee year. He could set the calendar right, because it was a mess. And people have been trying to set it right after the first captivity. The calendar got messed up. So I wondered why Jesus did go on the ministry that Paul went on. It confounded me for 30 years. I didn't get it. I said, why need Paul? My gosh, the guy's a confounding mess. He's a lunatic. He's a serial killer. He's a mass murderer. He's a shooter. Why would anybody at the original church ever go into any of his churches after he's killed and tortured, women and children to get them to denounce their Lord? And that's what it says. That's why I did it, denounce their Lord. Well, what is this Lord? What is he going to do? Is it about God? No. The Lord of the Jubilee. The Lord of the Sabbath. The Lord of the sabbatical. God's Son, who understands God's calendar upon which everything was created. This is what Greek and Romans and other peoples are reading in the Septuagint. They're reading this in Ireland and Scotland and England. They're reading the Septuagint. They see that this one God created, rather than wanting to control people, enslave people like the Egyptians, have them build pyramids, was liberating them from slavery, giving them land, and getting them out of debt. It's absolutely the opposite of what all these gods are doing. Paul makes no mention of it because he's a Roman agent. He's a Roman citizen, a Jew and a Pharisee. There were two sects, and he was hired to destroy the Lord of the Jubilee and his followers and replace it with a facsimile. Okay? The Romans, when they would conquer a people, that's what they would do. They replace the priests, alter the teaching just enough so it's all favorable to Rome. All roads lead to Rome. They had a lot of trouble destroying the Lord of the Jubilee. A lot of trouble. Because there was a calendar. Okay? There was a time, and a calendar, and moons, and stars, and the things that were valid. Not these invisible gods looking down, from the clouds and playing with people like chess pieces. This involves the whole universe. So, the million Jews in the Septuagint understood that the Jubilee year was coming. It had been established by the Lord of the Jubilee, and they were coming to Jerusalem by the tens of thousands, right? The mustard seed, okay? Jesus didn't have to go and visit all these places, and in the synagogues and start teaching. All they needed to do was read certain passages of the Jubilee, and there was no radio, there was no television antenna, there was no big, circular disc that shoots off satellites, because it already existed. You already had the center, the bullseye. You already had the audience coming, like Woodstock, to the greatest message one could have. And all I had to do was walk around Jerusalem, him and the 12, and repeat the message, and perform some miracles. And then like a wave, it spreads. The message is spread. Just like throwing a pebble in a stream. Whoosh. See, there's no need for Paul, the serial killer. He's dead. He died with the Republican Party. Republican Party is dead. I'm the last only surviving member. All right? This is a glorious day. So put it together. The Abolitionist Party, started by socialist Germans who married Jews, who became linked with the Zionists and went back to Israel to form the Israeli state. Republican Party, freeing the slaves, returning lands to people that were taken from them. All right? Put that together. And look at this information I'm giving you. That's the missing key, the broadcast. 1 million Jews lived all around Jerusalem, up in Britain and England and Germany. See, the message went that far. The Septuagint was being read and carried all the way up into Scotland, where it was studied. This is a world revolution. This isn't that little prick Paul and his murderous little liar, going around, still threatening people, still hunting people down, still shaming people and fighting with people. That's because he didn't have the message, and he never did. Paul is dead. Paulianity is dead today. This is a great day, because now we can begin to build, restructure the broadcasting machine, the mustard seed of Jesus. Now, this is a very good article which I just read. Truth in Scripture. Jesus' birth. When was Jesus born? The following post is taken from an upcoming book by Joseph Leonard entitled Mysteries of Jesus' Life Revealed, His Birth, Death, Resurrection, and Ascension. And this discusses the Jubilee. It's right all through this. We can't... Joseph Leonard can't deal with these issues without talking about the Jubilee. And I concluded this in 2007. And I started a Yahoo group, the Jubilee Jesus, and I posted on it. Since then, there other articles appeared. I've been looking at them for the last couple hours. And this is the great debate I've had about doing a book and selling my book and getting, notoriety and money and, and blah, blah, blah. Or begin to give the information away free, like a mustard seed. So, someone comes across my blog, they see the Jubilee, and they go, ha-ha, and then they go looking at it, they go, huh, okay, wow, I don't think Mr. Presco saw this. I'll just write a book about this or write an article about this, and someone else picks it up, reads it, and so it goes. It's just like the parable of the mustard seed. And radiates out. And that's all Jesus was doing during the Jubilee year. He didn't have to go anywhere, travel around on ships, He just stayed right there out, by the Golden Gate, right outside the temples. And gave the word right there. And you know what? Millions of Jews accepted his teaching. They didn't hate him. They didn't go, he can't say he's Son of God. Oh, we must kill him. That's a lie. A lie. And they didn't have, no Jew or official had the right, to kill anybody for over a religious, claim. No, they feared the Jubilee. See? He had the microphone. He found the microphone. See, people could hear him he could stand in Jerusalem, and the word spread. He could speak in Jerusalem, and 10 days later, they're reading his words in Scotland. 10 days. All right. We're free. This is really exciting. I'm throwing off your chains. The lies of Satan and Satan Paul, and John Darby and the rapture lie, all of it. You're free. I'm throwing off your chains. Say hallelujah. All right. This is John Presco, Springfield Johnny, signing out.